floor is yours, Rui.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Rui Malheiro, and I welcome you to this AquaRating webinar on transforming the management of water and sanitation utilities. We have around 280 participants registered for this webinar, which is a quite good number for this webinar series from the International Water Association. And I would like to guide you through the program for today. Let me move to the agenda. Okay, so we'll start with the first presentation, AquaRating, the rating system for water and sanitation service provider. This is an AquaRating about this is a presentation about the overall AquaRating system. It gives you the story of AquaRating, what is AquaRating about, when was started, where is AquaRating currently implemented, and this presentation will be given by Francisco Cobillo, who is from Canal de Isabel II, Spain. After that, we will have 5 minutes for questions and answers. The way it works is all the attendees are free to write down their questions on the, maybe I can show you here, on the Q&A icon in the bottom of your screen. And then I will, as a moderator, read the question to the speaker. So anytime you feel free to submit your question, and I will read the question to the speaker. In case there are too many questions, some of them will be replied after the webinar. So after that, we have 3 different case studies. The first one is actually more than a case study. It's actually an overview from the AquaRating implementations in Latin America. This one is AquaRating transforming the water and sanitation sector in Latin America. Is a presentation given by Corinne Catala from the Inter-American Development Bank. The second case study, very interesting one as well, is assessment and improvement of water authority of Fiji, is the AquaRating implementation in Fiji, provided by Manasa Tuzulu. And the third case study, an analysis of potential performance improvement in Freetown's water utility using the AquaRating system, is given by Ansumana Swarai, who is a Millennium Challenge Coordinating Unit member from Sierra Leone. After that, we will have a panel discussion where all the attendees will submit their questions about any of the case studies, but also about the AquaRating first presentation. So that will be a moment to gather opinions from different speakers. Well, I think we can go to the first presentation given by Francisco Cobillo. Let me just read the Francisco Cobillo is co-author of AquaRating, an international standard for assessing water and wastewater services. He is a member of the AquaRating Technical Committee, is co-author of performance indicators for water supply services. Currently, Francisco is Deputy Director of Research, Development and Innovation in Canal de Isabel II, Water Authority of Madrid. He has more than 30 years of experience in urban water service planning and management. So, Francisco, you can start.
Okay, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So I'm happy to summarize in 10 minutes the main information about AquaRating. So first, to say that, well, it is an international standard that was co-developed by International Water Association and the Inter-American Development Bank. And currently, it is used for many water utilities and for some financial institutions like Asian Development Bank, Millennium Corporation, World Bank, etc. So what is AquaRating? the first question. It is more than a rating system, although was designed as a rating system. Well, it is mainly a comprehensive characterization system. It is a system for assess the management and the level of service in any urban water supply and sanitation system for a certain area, for a certain city, for a certain hydraulic system, and for a specific period of time, normally 1 year. I would say that it's a unique assessment system. It's completely different than any other. And it's very special for different reasons, but it could be used in different ways and for different purposes. So making the main characteristic that it's reliable, updated, complete, a comprehensive assessment is a tool for improving knowledge. Every time we use a tool, we improve our knowledge, but AquaRating is providing a specific opportunity to improve knowledge through the use of AquaRating. It is especially helpful to build action plans for planning. It's a planning instrument since it's defining or designing a basic line with the current situation. It is focused on efficiency in many of its assessment elements. So it is mapping efficiency, and it's giving opportunity to improve efficiency and to design efficiency programs. And it is allowing reliable benchmarking since it is providing reliable characterization is appropriate to reliable benchmarking. If I had to summarize in 2 words the characteristics of AquaRating, I would say comprehensiveness and reliability, because, well, it's covering the main management areas and it's putting a special emphasis in reliability of information and reliability of the scores. It provides more than 400 scores for 400 information, data, variables, assessment elements, and all of them are weighted in one only rating, but the main information, the main knowledge, it could be got through this 400 system. It has a structure that through assessing the main 8 management areas: quality of service, access to service, business management efficiency, operating efficiency, investment planning, financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, and corporate governance, the main areas. And well, this assessment is based on 2 main types of information: indicators, traditional quantitative indicators, and good practices. Is assessing processes and practice based on a complete catalog of good practices for managing urban water systems. And well, additionally to this information for every one of them, makes an assessment of the reliability of every data, every information provided. And this reliability assessment is well defined in the system and is a factor that will affect the scores of every one of those systems. All these characteristics are well described in a book that is published by IWA Publishing, and it's available in English, Spanish, and currently is being translated to Chinese and Portuguese. Well, the structure of the system, as I mentioned, well, is based on 8 assessment areas that are divided in 28 assessment sub-areas, 112 assessment elements. 60 out of 112 are traditional indicators that use 101 variables, and well, it used 381 individual practices that are grouped in 52 group of practices. For every one of the assessment elements, AquaRating calculates the one score from 0 to 100, and this score is already affected by the appropriate reliability of the information used to calculate every one of those assessment elements. And through a weighted system described in the standard, is calculating the score for every one of the elements, every one of the sub-areas, every one of the 8 areas. it is a system for improvement. It is, since we are using, and many utilities are using in the world, it is evident that the main target, the main benefit is to use it just to look for improvement. And this improvement could be very efficient because it's based using AquaRating in a complete map of the diagnostic of the current situation. And in this map, it has all the information that is important to make an action for improvement. That is provided for AquaRating. If I have to summarize in 2 pillars all these more than 400 information assessment elements, I would concentrate in performance. So the assessment of the performance based on the traditional KPI information for service, governance, management, and in maturity. Maturity is something very specific of AquaRating, because since it's defining, assessing the techniques, equipment, technologies, infrastructure, the capacities and processes, this is the only information available, able to provide an assessment of the maturity of the process. Confidentiality is another key issue that has been considered in AquaRating. We know the importance of confidentiality of information that is managed by water utilities. So AquaRating guarantee confidentiality through the self-assessment function that could be used through the use of a platform, software platform that enables this calculation in an autonomous way. But this self-assessment could be tested in some way in 2 different ways. One is making a consistency analysis of the information provided. That is one of the functions of this platform, software platform, that could be carried out by the water utility or the user that is applying. But if the utility wants a more complete validation carried out by an independent third party, it is part of the process that is considered in AquaRating. But then we need to hire an AquaRating certified auditor. So any user could go through one of those or both validation systems. Now it's spreading along through the world. As you can see, mainly focused in Latin America, but now it is applied in Europe, Africa, and Asia, and Oceania. The stages for applying AquaRating, well, I've already mentioned, but I will go through. First, we'll approach the system to be familiarized with it, with well, the main standards and so on. Then information must be compiled and uploaded to the platform. Consistency validation should be always carried out in order to get guarantee that there are no mistakes or inconsistent information. And well, if it's the case that there are some errors or inconsistencies are detected, some amendments should be carried out by the water utility. And then it's possible to obtain a preliminary qualification and 1 preliminary report. If it wants the complete validation, an audit and certification should be carried out. AquaRating issues a detailed report with the scores for every assessment, for every sub-area, and the information about the loss of score through due to a bad or not enough reliability of information. But additionally, it is possible to have an assessment of the balance between maturity and performance for every area, for every sub-area, because, you know, when we are thinking in an efficient planning, we need to be sure not only to reach the appropriate performance indicator, but to be sure that the performance is balanced with the maturity that is the origin of this performance. And finally, well, since it has a reliable assessment, is the only way to make a reliable benchmarking. So if guaranteeing confidentiality and anonymous, it is possible to carry out benchmarking exercises among different companies willing to do it and willing to that have some similarities. So it is possible to identify clusters that they could make analysis like this is one of the case of the one example of benchmarking with amongst 5 companies. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francisco. It's a very interesting presentation. Please let me remind you that you can start submitting your questions through the Q&A button of your screen. It's already a person asking if the slides will be presented later. Yes, there will be a video available from this webinar that you can access after the session. And the first question that we got from our attendance is, would you please clarify what is meant by maturity for water and sanitation facilities? I think Francisco Covillo has something to say on this.
Well, maturity, as I said, is a way to integrate all the assessment elements that are reflecting maturity based on the processes, the capacity of the staff, the team, the technology that is already applied, the way it is applied, the techniques that are using. So since AquaRating has more than 400 information about this type of processes, practices, techniques, technologies, it is able to make an assessment of the maturity of the company in the way it manages, not only in the results or performance that is obtaining through this maturity, but it's clear that some maturity will produce results or performance in the future as a consequence of this application.
Okay, very good. So we have got a few more questions. The next one is, what are the incentives for utilities to use AquaRating?
Well, I have described in the purposes at West. We are used. I work for a utility. I know that the utility works operators, and we are used to lie ourselves, and we think that we know very well our companies, our processes, our performance. So that's one of the very best incentives is to check, to compare with the international standard, and to know if according to this standard, which is AquaRating, we are as good or as bad as we consider in a comprehensive way. Second one is, well, to have this characterization, this complete, standard, reliable characterization. Sometimes we think that we have a certain performance, but we are not used to incorporate the reliability, the accuracy of the data that we are using to calculate this indicator to performance. AquaRating is providing that. And the same with practices. We think that we are using a certain technology, but perhaps we are not using in the appropriate way. So all this is provided through AquaRating. And to be able to have this map, this complete map based on this standard international criteria that, well, not everybody will agree with the criteria, but I think it's an international standard that has been defined by many experts, many group of interest, and many different people in focus group. Well, it is an opportunity for improvement. So I cannot imagine to design a strategic plan, an investment plan without a reliable baseline. And AquaRating is providing this reliable, complete, and comprehensive baseline.
Francisco, another question from the public is, how does AquaRating compare with other benchmarking companies, such as Third Horizon? I think it's important to clarify this what is AquaRating and how benchmarking stands to AquaRating.
Initially, AquaRating wasn't designed for a benchmark, for benchmarking. But we know, well, since we are using, we know how important is benchmarking as a management practice, a management tool for many water utilities. So what we have realized through the use of AquaRating is that the only system, the only tool that is providing a certain assessment of the reliability of the values, variables, and indicators that are going to be used for benchmarking. So if we are practicing or involved in a benchmarking exercise and we provide any value, it doesn't matter if you want to lie or not, but if you don't have any consistent assessment of reliability among all participants of benchmarking, the benchmarking exercise couldn't be very credible or very useful. And additionally, it's providing the opportunity to benchmark practices, not only indicators, best practices. So that's the main difference. I don't know any other benchmarking tool able to provide these characteristics.
Very good. Another question is how many companies take part in AquaRating, and what are the possibilities to connect with other benchmarkings like ABC, IBC? Thanks.
I think now well, perhaps Rui or Corinne knows better than me, but I think there are almost 49 active companies now applying AquaRating in the world. Well, I think to connect with other tools, it seems difficult because, well, I told you that since they are using different principles, it is difficult to compare, but it could be, well, a possibility to analyze, but initially it wasn't considered.
Very well, and we don't have more time for questions. As I said, those questions not replied here will be answered after the webinar offline. But we should go to the next presentation. As I said, we have 3 different case studies. So the first one is an overview of the Latin American implementations of AquaRating. It's presented by Corinne Catala, who is currently a lead water and sanitation specialist in the Water and Sanitation Division of the Inter-American Development Bank. She began her career in 1996 as an investment officer. Since 2001, Corinne has been leading operation and collaborating on the design and execution of water and sanitation projects in the region. Corinne earned an MBA in International Finance from the George Washington University. So Corinne, you can go.
Thank you, Rui. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, as would say Paco. I'm trying to move to the next slide. Here we go.
Okay.
To provide water and sanitation for an operator is a real challenge because on one hand, it has to respond to growing demand for access to service. It also has to look for efficiency in all the value chain, in its finances, in the management of its costs, in its operations. In addition to that, it has to design management models to ensure the sustainability of the utility in the long term. And it has to continue providing the service, and obviously this cannot stop. As Paco was mentioning previously, the AquaRating helps utilities establish a baseline, a diagnosis with reliable information to develop improvement plans, investment plans, and generate change within the utility, and also to comply with the strategic objectives and continued improvement. Some utilities, as we will see later on in the region, have decided to implement the AquaRating in order to access financing, because the financial institutions are more comfortable to have reliable information from the utility. The way we are structured in Latin America and at the IDB, in particular, is like we have a management unit that defines the global strategy, the guidelines, and also leads the commercial activities. We also have a technical unit that brings support to the utilities, that respond to queries from operators when they enter their information in the AquaRating platform, and the technical unit also ensures quality control. In addition to that, there is in the field, we have a country unit. In each country, we have an IDB country office. So there is an IDB specialist that helps us make the link between headquarters and the operator. So they define the country strategy and also the development of programs and commercial activities. And lastly, there is a technical unit that brings support. There is an audit firm that brings support to the utility that is in constant communication with the technical unit and the rest of the team, and that brings also IT support. In Colombia, we have been working in Colombia for the past 2 years, and we have developed a project in Colombia in collaboration with SECO. SECO is the Swiss Cooperation Agency, and SECO is providing financing to implement the AquaRating in 10 utilities. First, to evaluate the utility, to establish a baseline, then to design improvement plans, and then to implement those improvement plans. And finally, at the end of the execution period, which will be about 4 years, there will be another implementation of the AquaRating to assess the improvement the utility would have gone through. And the utility will be certified AquaRating after they implement the improvement plan. There is another case in Mexico. And in Mexico, we are working with also 10 utilities through a large program of $200 million with CONAGUA. CONAGUA is the main water authority and regulator. In Mexico, we are working directly with water operators, and here as well, they are interested in implementing the AquaRating to establish a baseline and develop improvement plans that will be later on financed through the PRODI program. What is our portfolio in Latin America to date? As Paco was mentioning, we are all over the world working with about 45 to 50 utilities. In Latin America, we are working with over 30 utilities, which are disseminated all throughout the continent, from Mexico to Argentina. And those utilities have decided to implement the AquaRating for different reasons, to know themselves better, to establish baseline diagnosis, to obtain reliable information in order to access financing from local financial institutions or from multilateral agencies, and also it enables them to create synergies within the utility itself. So lastly, the feedback we receive from the utilities which have implemented AquaRating is as follows. Most of them would like to implement the AquaRating because it improved their information system. Some of them implemented it to know better their own processes, to collaborate with other departments in the company with which they didn't collaborate before, and to know themselves better. So as I said, now those departments are working together towards the same goal. It brought, the AquaRating brought several teams together to implement the AquaRating. And this is it. I'm open to questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Corinne. Actually, we ask the attendees to send their questions. However, all the questions for the case studies will take place at the end of the 3 case studies. So we can now go to the second case study, assessment and improvement of water authority of Fiji. This is presented by Manasseh Tuzulu, who is senior business analysis based in the strategic planning unit of the Water Authority of Fiji. Is an accountant by profession and has been with WAF since 2012. Before joining WAF, he was with the KPMG Chartered Accountants for over 10 years. Manasseh, you can go.
Yes, good evening from Fiji, and good morning to some of you, and maybe good mid-afternoon. So my presentation is basically to take you through the assessment and the improvement of the Water Authority of Fiji through the use of AquaRating. So it has been a good journey for the Water Authority of Fiji over the last 2 years. And I will start my presentation now. Trying to get through my slide. Okay, here we go. So the AquaRating project in Fiji was undertaken through the Suva-Nosori corridor. This is the 2 major system in Fiji. So this was our scope. So instead of having the AquaRating applied nationally or to the whole of Fiji, we applied it to the 2 major systems. These 2 major systems had 2 major water treatment plants and 1 major wastewater treatment plant. The system is serving an equivalent population of around 320,000 people. Now the population of Fiji is less than 1 million. So that was the scope for the AquaRating here in Fiji and for the Water Authority of Fiji. So how did we implement AquaRating? There was a few phases. First of all, we had a workshop whereby the AquaRating specialists came over, led by Francisco. They came through just to provide an introduction on the system and took us through the system, showing us how the system works, the key focus areas through the AquaRating system, and how to work on that particular tool. And what we did as a team here in WEF, we set up a steering committee consisting of 8 different staff to look at the 8 different elements or areas in the AquaRating system. So for example, looking at financial sustainability, we got our manager of finance to look after that. In terms of our access to service, we got our manager non-revenue water to look after that. So we made up a team of 8 staff looking into the 8 key areas. So throughout the journey of a duration of 4 to 6 months, we collected information on the scope of the AquaRating system. We collected all this information, we entered this into the AquaRating system, and later on through phase 4, the AquaRating specialists came over to verify the information that we had and what we have included or inputted into the AquaRating tool. So there was an information review that was undertaken by the specialist, and also a final provision, and whereby we mapped out some performance improvement or action list for the development or the improvement of our water utility. So what was our results? So our rating for the AquaRating was 42.11 out of 100. So the different components or the different scores from the 8 focus areas combined, we got a global rating of around 42. Now benchmarking this against some other water utilities that took part in this particular exercise, based from the specialist, one of the lowest scores was around 25 and the highest was 75. So for Water Authority of Fiji, we were sitting on an average, right in the middle, as compared or benchmarked against other water utilities. So knowing the results that we've got in the 8 key areas, what we did as a water utility, we zeroed in or we focused in the areas that we were not doing well in. And these were the areas: operational efficiency, financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, and service quality. So these were the key areas that we needed to improve on, or the gap areas that was identified through the use of the AquaRating tool. So knowing that we had gaps in these 4 key areas, what did we do as a water utility? So we basically sat as a committee, the 8 team members. We developed action plans to address the gap areas that we've identified. So through the action plans that we developed, we ranked them into short, medium, and long-term action plans. And we basically monitored the progress of these action plans through monthly meetings by the steering committee, just to check on the progress of the gaps that we've identified and how we need to be addressing them to ensure we improve the water utility in the 4 focus areas that we've identified. So what were the benefits or the achievements of the AquaRating system after going through this? It was an opportunity to carry out a comprehensive scan of the Water Authority of Fiji. We set a solid baseline to build action plans. Although the scope of the AquaRating exercise was just for 2 major systems, when we applied the action plans or the actions for the action plans, we applied it on a national scope. So instead of just doing the 2 water systems, we applied it to the 55 other treatment plants that we had. So while we took action from the scope, the application of the action plans was on a national basis. So from this, we developed new policies, we developed new manuals, SOPs. So for example, out of the 55 water treatment plants, we completed 17 water safety plans, 3 wastewater safety plans. We developed instrumentation policies for management of our real losses, or NRW, tariff review to increase our water rates. We developed customer charter, and we'll also launched a liquid trade waste policy. So the ability to use AquaRating as a dashboard to follow up on progress of our performance. AquaRating, we used it to improve our management efficiencies, and also using this or benchmarking ourselves against international best practices. So it provided a lot of reliability and data that was shared with high instances and strengthened our ties with the ADB and the International Water Association. So to conclude, so that is basically our specialists, Francisco and Raymond from the team of AquaRating here in Fiji. And that was our journey here in the Water Authority of Fiji. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manasa. I think this was a very interesting presentation, but we should go to the next one. And the last is from Sierra Leone, Ansumana Swarai, who is the Director of Water Sector Reform Project, Millennium Challenge Coordinating Unit, the Sierra Leone Threshold Program, founded by Millennium Challenge Corporation, USA. He is a water, environment, and sanitation practitioner with over 13 years of professional experience in water supply and sanitation development and management, project management, institutional and capacity development, environmental management, and climate change. He holds a bachelor in environmental science and master in water and environmental management. And Savannah, you can go.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I greet you from Sierra Leone, Freetown. We have a good weather today. So as reintroduced, we are supporting the main utility called Guma Valley to strengthen their institutional performance. And this support is coming from the American bank. I mean, what has happened in Sierra Leone for over 40 years, even before the war, we had developed a lot of water systems supported by donor partners. But because of lack of institutional and development systems in place, so most of them became dilapidated. So the war just finished everything because we didn't have put in place systems to manage this. So this has been a big issue for us. So it's now clear to us that you can have all the infrastructure in the world, but without a good system to manage it, you will not really get the desired effect of serving the people with good and excellent services. The next slide. So as I said, the utility company we are supporting is called the Guma Valley Water Company, and there are a lot of challenges for them to deliver on what they should do. But with the support from the Millennium Challenge Corporation and the government of Sierra Leone through the Threshold program, so the project that I am managing was designed to support the whole water sector in terms of sector coordination to improve there, but specifically to strengthen commercial operations and planning and capacity of the water company, and more importantly also to ensure transparency, accountability, all the things that will help to improve service delivery and sustainable management. So for us to do this, because of this challenge, we need to understand the state of Guma Valley. Now, as it is now, currently, service delivery is poor in Guma Valley. About 29% of the residents have access to private connections. And of course, 31% is more on public connections. Some of them, the rest are without pipe-borne water, depending on other sources of water. The next point. So when you look at, as a utility, their collection efficiency, even as of 2015, is at 75%. Now, revenue water is very high. I mean, we have not done an empirical study to assess it. So it's a lot of estimations. The real loss is about 40 to 50. It could be more than that. Commercial losses is unknown. We don't know about commercial losses at all. We just estimate most of these losses. Now, when you look at the supply and demand, of course, the population of the city is increasing. It's about now almost over about 1.5 million, and the current supply, which is 60 to 80 megaliter per day, because the capacity of the Guma Dam was designed to serve all the 300 to 400,000 people in the 60s, but now that has really exceeded that. So there's a lot of supply needs. The real daily demand is unknown, but as I said, everything is estimated to about 200 milliliter per day. Now, in terms of the tariff itself, there has not been a tariff increase in Sierra Leone since 2006, but then in 2016, there was an adjustment. We are in a flat rate for domestic users about $6.74 per month, and commercial is within 0.68 to 1.36 per meter cube of water consumed. But I mean, we have the lowest tariff in the world, and this is a whole issue for that. So in the AquaRating assessment, I mean, we knew we are not expected to have a good score, but we need this information to help us in terms of our plan. How can we actually support Guma Valley to build the institution to strengthen there? So the assessment, we got a very low score, which was anticipated, but I mean, this was like compared against other global standard of practice. We did all the entries. We completed with the support from AquaRating. Of course, as Francisco explained, the auditing process. So we went through that, but we saw that as a beginning point, which can help us in designing our program. And we actually use this information, like the current institutional strength assignment, the finalizes of the terms of reference. We actually use the initial information from AquaRating to actually design and complete terms of reference, which we now, with the consultant we are about to recruit, we now use that to do the performance improvement of Guma Valley Water Company. Next slide. Next slide. So, I mean, that was the global result of 10.38, but when you go through by each thematic area, I mean, access to service extremely poor, you know, and then we also try to relate that what will happen, because now we are at 10.38, so we are going to do another assessment in 2010 and 2019, so we expect that will be up to 40%, and then by 2021, we really go through all the implementation process, will be about 70%. Next slide. So we try also to cooperate with current status 2017, 2019, you know, and how the areas will apply the AquaRating in terms of the non-revenue water loss, how can we apply that? So we have put together in our strategic performance improvement plan, which we have developed, that can help us to implement it to change some of the present situation Guma Valley is at. The next slide. So you see most of these issues. So the thing I want to dwell on here is the lesson learned from the process. We realize that evaluating utility performance and comparing it against other international best practice can reveal a lot of strength. And some of these you cannot identify them in the day-to-day operations. We also realize that the AquaRating rates utility without considering the context that the utility operates in. And that's very important to us. We need to contextualize everything. And sometimes the finding could be interpreted to be low by people who do not understand, but actually most of these issues and processes are actually very important for you to actually know this is the situation that the utility is operating in. So we learn all of these lessons from this assessment, which are actually helping us in our institutional strengthening process. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Ansumana, and we can now go to the questions. As I said, you can submit your questions at any time, but now we have the panel discussions where questions can be directed for any of the speakers. If you want a specific speaker to respond to your question, you may send your question and mention the speaker. Otherwise, I will send the question to the person who I think is better positioned to reply. Well, we have got many questions, so I could start with the first one here, asking maybe this could be this could be directed to Corinne. Is asking who is paying for the independent third party of measuring the performance indication of or benchmarking. So I mean
Can you please repeat the question?
So
Ori?
the question is who is financing the assessment of the utilities?
The financing assessment.
Yeah. Yes. Who is financing AquaRating?
Who is financing AquaRating? Okay. AquaRating is financed through different sources. First of all, the bank has been providing some financing for the starting of the operations of AquaRating throughout the region. And also AquaRating is being financed by some utilities themselves, and also through some some financial operations, IDB loan operations or donations, and through other operations from other multilateral institutions or financial institutions like SECO, which I was mentioning, the Swiss Agency Corporation, which is financing AquaRating in Colombia. So there are multiple sources of financing available right now.
Okay. Corinne, actually, I have got so many questions for you, but I think I'll just ask another one. Does AquaRating work with national regulators in countries such as SUNAS in Peru in order to share information, results, method?
This is a good question. Yes, the regulators in the countries are very interested in AquaRating, and they are following this very closely. The one in Peru, SUNAS, as well, the one in Colombia, the CRA, are both very interested in using some of the indicators that are included in the AquaRating for their own system, and also maybe switch from one system to another. So this is very promising, I would say. Regulators in general are following this very closely.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So in order to do not ask all the questions to Corinne, I want to ask something to Francisco. May you show some improvements, examples that have been reached by AquaRating intervention in Latin America? The question is Latin America, but I think it would apply for any other utility supplying worldwide.
Well, I think that perhaps Corinne could answer better than me this question, but well, we don't have yet information of a regular application of AquaRating in order to make a robust answer to this question. So I'm saying AquaRating is being applied in many water utilities as well, just to get the first diagnostic, the first map or scan or baseline for decision. In some cases, they have made some decision, they have implemented some action plans, like Manasa Tusulu was describing in WAF, or some other example like in Quito, it maps the water authority of Quito has applied AquaRating twice, and in some way it is very evident that they got some improvement just in 1 year of using the diagnostic of AquaRating to get this action plan. I'm sure that some other utilities since they already carried out this application of AquaRating, we know, but I think that Corinne better than me knows that they are already starting to apply some action plans with some clear target to get improvement in 1 year horizon, not only for the medium to long term, but we will need to wait till that scenario to make a credible assessment of the benefit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very well. I think I can ask this to Manasa. Manasa, can you give examples of what kind of data we need to gather in order to use AquaRating, and how was your experience gathering that data?
As usual, the data gathering is always a challenge. One of the things was the actual format of the data that was required under AquaRating. So we had to gather the data and analyze it to ensure that was meeting the AquaRating, what was required as under AquaRating. So data gathering is always a challenge in any process. And for WEF, we've just been operating for the 7th year now, and we use AquaRating as a tool to basically learn and to grow. So that was one of the main benefits for us. But going back to the question, the data that was gathered, it was challenge. It was a bit challenging initially, but we got down to getting the data right after getting the interaction done with the AquaRating entity and the specialists who were here with us, just clarifying just some of the wordings in the AquaRating tool, written by Francisco. Some of the Spanish, when it was translated into English, there was a bit of misunderstanding, but that was clarified, and that was basically, I think, was one of the challenges. But the 2D itself for us was very beneficial because it identified a lot of gaps for us in terms of matching our performance to best practice, international best practice. So that was it, a great learning experience for us.
Very good. Wow, we have so many questions. Let me just pick one. Maybe to Ansumana. So what were the main challenges while implementing AquaRating? What were your? I think you mentioned some of them already. Not sure if you want to add something on this.
So like Goma Valley performance flow. So the major challenge was documentation, because you have the AquaRating system needs to be verified. It's an evidence driven. So if you say you are doing this operation, for instance, you are treating your water, and then you have to produce the document to show that yes, you are doing this. And it was not easy to get all the documents. So that actually contributed a lot to the low score, because not that they are not doing some of the practices, the good practices, but there is no evidence, there is no document to it. So in fact, that actually caused to actually even hire an external consultant, a local consultant that work with them to actually put the document together. And it's not only the document, but the form they are in, which has to be uploaded to the AquaRating platform, more for the DEX audit. It was not easy. So that was our key challenge. Documentation extremely poor. And so without good documentation, for you to go through the system, we expected to have done the AquaRating for 6 months, but because of that delay in preparing the documents and opening it took us a year to actually start and complete it. So documentation, availability of documentation to support the argument is a challenge for Goma Valley.
Okay, very well. Thank you very much, Ansumana. And actually, I think we don't have more time for questions, unfortunately. As I said, all the missing questions, which are many, will be replied after the webinar. But at the moment, we have to go on to the final of this webinar. There are some coming activities on AquaRating that I would like to highlight to you all. So there will be a workshop at the IWA Water and Development Congress and exhibition in Buenos Aires, Argentina. That session is about how water utilities can improve their performance using AquaRating. If you are attending this conference, you can go to the session, and you will be we will have the opportunity to meet with some of the speakers here, and also to know more about AquaRating and the AquaRating current activities. You can also go to the AquaRating website that is here, aquarating.org, where you can find more information about it. A very good manual of AquaRating, the AquaRating standard, as Francisco mentioned in the beginning, has all the performance indicators, all the best practices on AquaRating. It can be found on IWA publishing, and you'll also receive an email after this webinar with more information on how to access this manual, and also with a discount on the normal price of the manual. And apart from that, you can also contact us on the info@aquarating.org. or you can either contact us by this email or send me email to myself or any of the speakers. My email is rui.malheiro, is just my name my surname at iwahq.org. So we thank you for attending this webinar. We thank all the speakers. I think it was a great webinar, although a bit short. We wanted to have more time to talk more about AquaRating, but that's 1 hour the time that we have. So thank you once again, and have a nice day.
Thank you.